In 1933, as most of the European armies were intensifying their mechanization efforts, Austria, although not a major power, was also making progress due to its industrial advantage. That year, the Austro-Daimler Company was commissioned to develop a light vehicle that could be used to tow medium and small caliber artillery, transport ammunition, and soldiers. After a year, the Austro-Daimler Mulus, a dual-purpose wheeled and tracked transport vehicle, was introduced. In the 1930s, there was a trend of dual-purpose wheeled and tracked vehicles in Europe, and Austria was particularly fond of this concept. In theory, a vehicle that could travel on roads with wheels and on rough terrain with tracks would have greater mobility than a vehicle with only one mode of transportation. The Austro-Daimler Mulus, codenamed Mulus, had an unusual conversion method. The body of the vehicle was approximately the same length as its tracks. The front half was an open cockpit with a steering wheel for the driver in the middle, and the rear of the cockpit had a narrow row of seats for two soldiers, usually used by artillerymen hitching a ride. Powered by a 20-horsepower Daimler air-cooled four-cylinder engine with a 4-speed gearbox, the tracks were driven by a small drive wheel at the front end of each track, with two pairs of small idler wheels on each side and a protruding hub in the middle. The driver could switch the power from the drive wheel to the hub by operating a special clutch. The hub in the middle of the tracks was the drive wheel for wheeled travel, and the vehicle had to be jacked up to install the wheels for wheeled travel. The front of the vehicle had a foldable steering wheel, and there was some space above the front wheel where supplies could be stored or two soldiers could squeeze in. Normally, when traveling on tracks, all four wheels of the ADMK were facing upwards. The ADMK was 2.9 meters long, 3.68 meters long with the front wheels down, 1.36 meters wide, and 1.45 meters wide with the tires installed. When traveling on tracks, its maximum speed was 17 km per hour, and when traveling with tires, the maximum speed was 45 km per hour. It weighed 1.45 tons empty, with a maximum allowed weight of 1.73 tons. Production of the vehicle started in 1935 and ceased in 1938, with a total of 334 vehicles produced. These transport vehicles were generally used to tow 47mm anti-tank guns, as well as other guns with a caliber smaller than 105mm, or were used as machine gun vehicles. After Austria was annexed, the German military acquired the ADMK dual-purpose transport vehicles. However, the German military did not favor these armored vehicles because the dual-purpose structure added complexity and reduced transport performance. The German military modified these transport vehicles, some by removing the wheeled structure and using them purely as tracked vehicles, and some by retaining the front wheel structure and using them as half-tracked vehicles. In 1940, the vehicles were updated to carry a total of 6 soldiers in addition to the driver, although these soldiers were completely unprotected and in uncomfortable positions. There is not much record of the service history of these vehicles, indicating that the German military did not place much importance on them, using them mainly as rear-area transport vehicles. When used in the front lines, they were quite vulnerable. Like other dual-purpose vehicles, the ADMK had a complex mechanical structure, which seemed to provide better mobility, but in reality, it was significantly inferior to equipment such as the Bren gun carrier when traveling on tracks alone, and far from a conventional car when traveling with tires. The designers hoped to give it comprehensive advantages, but the result was that it was not particularly good at any one aspect. Furthermore, the ADMK had an open structure with no protection for the crew, making it unsuitable for frontline missions. The conversion between wheeled and tracked modes was also not convenient, which is why the German military simply removed the relevant structures and only used the tracked mode for travel.